Welcome back to another episode of the Better Health Bookshelf. And this week I'm featuring the brand new book, Everyday Medicine. And I'm joined today by its author, Dr. Michael Blahut. Dr. Michael, welcome. It's good to reconnect with you. We have a kind of an interesting way we met, which was about a year or two ago. But I heard about the book. I'm on your email list. And wanted to invite you. So first of all, congratulations. It's a great book.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know you reached out to me. I was really happy to hear from you and other people interested in health books and focus on things we can do to improve our health and wellness into the future. And I love your podcast and your idea of just getting people information and connecting to different sources that may not be, the mainstream or the common narrative. So thank you for your support as well.
It's important probably for me to share that the reason I connected with you, it was either last year or the year before. You were local to where I live, and I found you when I was doing the diligent research of trying to find a functional medicine general physician, which is not an easy thing to find. Someone who's a general physician who thinks the way you do, I do, thinks a little more holistically about things. And we met that way. You were around for a little while. You moved to another office, and then you moved out of the country. So you are calling in from where today?
I'm in Costa Rica right now, and yeah, that's just been a journey for me and just expressing my gifts are and how to help people the best, and definitely that sort of stages from medicine to understanding what is health, how to really help people. And I think it's really important what you mentioned is people really tapping into finding a physician that supports their worldview, supports your view on health. And I know it's limited, but people are out there and there's more growing doctors that are opening up to other concepts and the functional medicine concept in general, which, used to be called integrative medicine or alternative medicine. You can go back with, how, medicine has always either been, one side or the other. And now we're kind of at a point where there's technology, these podcasts, and people are asking good questions and saying, why do we have chronic disease and why am I not feeling good? Or why is my doctor giving me 5 minutes and doesn't it seem fair, or does it seem like they're really helping me? So that's been, my journey as a physician, trying to figure out how to help people in the best way that also honors, people and honors really our humanistic nature, that we really just need to sit and talk to people and get to know people. And health is, very complicated, but it doesn't need to be. And that, kind of sprung me into, branching out, asking questions, learning new tools to try to help people.
Well, it's a refreshing approach for sure, Michael. And it's something that, again, yes, it's growing. It's still not easy to find somebody who, especially like in your case, the medical degree, but also you have the layer of looking at things through a different lens. Matter of fact, I was just sharing with a gentleman who listens to my podcast, who I've known for years. He just reached out to me recently just to give me an attaboy in one of my recent episodes. But he's got some chronic issues, and he's a young guy, and it's an autoimmune based issue. And he was kind of just putting that out there. And my first question back to him was, have you looked into trying to find a functional medicine doctor to take a look at this? So before we go any further and get into the book, I've had a few physicians on the podcasts that are functional medicine oriented. I always like to ask this question though. What does that mean to you when you're telling somebody how you are different than a typical MD, general practice physician? How do you articulate that?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think even asking what is functional medicine, shouldn't all medicine be functional to try to help people? And, we have to put these taglines on in order to, kind of refine what people are looking for, whether we call it holistic or alternative. But what it means from a physician standpoint is that, we spend more time broadening our perspective about what health is and trying to help people. And the amount of tools that are available isn't just taking a pill for every problem. And I think, in medicine in general, over the past, 20, 30, 40 years, we've streamlined the education for doctors to just focus on pharmaceutical-based approach or interventions in order to treat people as quickly as possible and the high numbers. So in that way, we kind of lose touch with, the ultimate goal is to bring out health in people. And as a functional or alternative integrative, physician, what we try to do is understand the individual from a really deep point of who they are, what brought them to this point, and try to support their foundation to health, which is, how does your body become more resilient to heal from any problem, really? So there's usually a sort of foundation that comes from our lifestyle and our diet and our relationships and our environment all around us. And then being very specific at broad and, I guess specific at, looking deeper for people, like doing better tests, doing more targeted tests instead of this, broad shotgun approach to things. And in helping people in my way, it's very practical because I want to see results. And if you tell me I'm feeling this and we're doing things and it's not working, then I have to broaden my perspective and ask other questions. What are we missing? Instead of sending people to a specialist or go to see that person, this person, people get oftentimes seeing, 10, 15 different doctors before I usually consult with them. And it turns out, we missed some very valuable material and someone just saying, what's your diet like? What's your stress level like? What's your sleep like? And getting back to the basics and building off of that. I think medicine needs to, move in that direction more. And, we have the evidence that whatever we're doing right now in the general medical approach isn't really working because so much chronic disease, there's so many people unhealthy, unhappy, on so many medications. And I do remember when I was in my medical training, I spent a lot of time with older doctors, and I went to an osteopathic medical school, which is, in medicine, we have these two degrees, MD and DO. And DOs traditionally, going back 100 years, also integrated hands-on approaches to helping people through improving their nervous system, their fascia, their lymphatic system. And so some of the doctors I was with were telling me that they were disappointed if a patient had to be on more than one medication. And I think we've moved past that, threshold where people accept that as a norm. And I think, that's not necessarily good or the best for our health, although medicines can help and it does, allow us, certain capability of supporting you in a disease. But what we're not getting at is the root cause and promoting health from the inside out.
It's a story I've shared a couple times on past episodes where the knee-jerk reaction of physicians to maybe spend 5 or 10 minutes with a new patient and, incorrectly take your blood, your blood pressure and all these things that they're just rushing you through. They're not getting accurate data. Exactly. If they had some blood work done beforehand, it's the basics. And a lot of those basics are so outdated. Right. And then what do they do after 10 minutes? Blood pressure medicine, cholesterol medicine, the typical, whatever it might be. Right. And what's so refreshing about your approach, the approach of everyday medicine, is that, yes, you take a step back. Yes, medicine does have its proper place, but it doesn't have to be that knee jerk, just put somebody on and then on to the next patient 10 minutes later. Right. So that's what I found so refreshing about you. And, when I saw your new book come out, I was very pleased. So let's jump in. It's brand new, Everyday Medicine. And before we get into it, Michael, I had highlighted some areas, and I'm not going to read everything, mainly because I have to get my glasses on and read this. But I thought there was one line here. Well, there were several lines I highlighted, but I'm just going to read one in particular I thought really does tee up the book, in my opinion. Right. And you right off the bat, you say, what is everyday medicine? You say everyday medicine transforms mundane activities like sunlight, breath, movement into profound tools for healing. And as I'm reading the book, 'cause I'm not done it quite yet, that to me is exactly what this book is about. about taking things that we know we are born with, maybe most of us have lost touch with, and transforming those into things that can heal
Mm,
us.
exactly.
So I think you've done
Yeah.
a great job, with that objective. So let's jump in. Your book articulates 6 zones of healing. And I'm going to ask you to kind of tease my listeners because we want them to get the book, because what you're sharing here is so powerful for everybody. Can you first describe the 6 zones at a high level? And then
Yeah.
we're going to take one by one and just share a tip or something, you want
Right.
my listeners to know about that particular zone.
Yeah, definitely. I think, to set that up, this makes sense of, how you're describing, the book, and my sort of objective really is to provide a foundation for people to realize there's other things available other than medications, and even like supplements and diet, which I don't even go to in that book because I know there's a lot of information out there about that. And what I'm trying to do is give people the concept of the things we do every day are medicine. And if you
Hmm.
shift your perspective to put your intention on that, that's how our body responds. So if I tell myself something's a medicine because of the placebo effect, because of how strong our sort of will and our mental consciousness is about things, then it becomes more powerful to our body. So in that way, I try to also link why these things are helpful by medical references and studies that have been done saying it's not trivial. It's actually a physiologic, biologic effect of these zones. So, how I start that off is with light and how much light can influence our health. And that ranges from, natural sunlight to the artificial light that we're exposed to. So same for any medicine, at the wrong dose can become a poison. So I think of, using, light to our advantage, and we've moved away from that as a culture and as a society, being afraid of sunlight, which we have really no evidence that that's necessarily, something to fear. And, so light, we can use that because there's so much studies showing how much our bodies heal faster, improve our circulation, our mitochondrial health when we get out into sun. And it's not really just about sunlight, it's about connecting to the circadian rhythm that our body needs to do our daily processes from healing, repair, sleep, digestion. And so light is very powerful. So I describe many different ways of using light, even forms of colored light. So there's
Hmm.
so much studies on, red light, and more people are doing these biohacking with red light, infrared light therapies, which there's evidence for. It really helps. And how do you get infrared light? Well, you light a campfire and you sit around it and you're getting warmth. And that's a, poor man's or cheap man's version of some infrared light. Just light something and get into a sauna. But in that way, what we're talking about are foundational principles of how our body is designed to work within nature. And so, yeah, I use light. That's, I have 5 zones, and that 6th zone is really how do you merge them all
Hmm.
together? So we have light, and then we have sound and vibration as a second zone. It talks about mostly like how much sound, frequency, and vibration are imperative to informing our body on what's going on around us. And we can use that to our advantage from cellular information. And there's even modern technology. We're using frequencies to shift cells into healing modes or to promote stem cell repair. And the old ways were getting out into nature, listening to bird songs, and that puts our brain into a sort of state where we're more in relaxed in the rest and digest and heal mode. And in that state, when we're hearing, sounds that are connecting us back to nature, our body begins to heal faster or detox better. And there's so many studies about that. The other thing is, music as a form of therapy has been studied, many times over, using it in hospitals to calm people down, to senior citizen, or, put homes where older people are to help them to improve their memory and cognition. So music has always been used throughout, history, from drumming to chanting. And so that's, the power that sound and vibration have in our health. And the third one, I talk about movement, and movement is always important as a human, as an animal, as a being on this planet. How do we move? How do we hold our posture? And then all the subtle details, like we know now in science, we've studied how we hold our posture. It reflects into our mind about a emotional mental state. So if we're sort of hunched over, and sort of crowded in and holding our posture in a sort of a slow way, then our body's going to respond that. So intentionally, we can change our posture. That's what yoga and all these, Tai Chi, Qigong are kind of bringing back to us, is that movement and posture very powerful for our body's healing mechanism and mental health and hormones. And so there's been many studies about this. The fourth one is breath. How do we use breath? How do we use our, innate, movement of air in and out? And that is intricately connected to our nervous system. And so by modulating our breath, by breathing differently, and there's a ton of techniques in there I give people and a ton of references about why these are important. But we shift our nervous system into that rest and digest and heal mode, and we can improve our oxygen, improve our circulation, we can improve our sort of mental health if we're stuck on a problem or, writing a book or something, then it's like, man, I just need to take a deep breath, close my eyes and reset. And there's so much power in that. In the fifth zone, I talk about the power of belief and intention and purpose. And, overarching all these themes are that, we are a human being on this planet. Our biology is designed for a reason. We're mammals. We, strive for connection to each other. And the more those, connections are severed, the more our, body suffers in a way, and we get less information from each other. That's why I love these podcasts. And the human touch is so important. So the idea behind that is, I'm sure everyone's heard of blue zones and people who live the longest on the planet. And we try to distill, the author of the blue zones tried to distill down like what are the key principles. And it's really difficult because of environmental factors and diet range. But the key principles, which I think gets underemphasized, is that people need each other. And oftentimes people who have a purpose or a key role in their community will tend to live longer. And because we convince ourselves that we're needed, and we create a biology in ourselves that enhances our own healing, and we enhances our own, you know, systems for repair and resilience. So community, connection, and positive thinking is an incredible tool. And just that last zone, you mentioned six zone, is really just like, how can you use them all together? And of course, if you do one thing, it helps. But if you do like 4 or 5 different things every day as your medicine, then we're just going to improve our own biological resilience and the ability to recover after illness, or to shift ourselves out of a state if we're in something that's a chronic disease model of getting our body. One, you could even say, it's not just about medication, but you can enhance your body's ability to utilize that medication. And why not? And so that's been my inspiration for this book, is trying to give people other tools and to make it practical and simple.
Well, I think, in fact, that is what has come across so far in my journey with the book. And I think I also, not think, I appreciate the fact that it's not about diet. There was no diets. There was no
Yeah.
menus. There was no workout routines, which I
Uh-huh.
appreciate. I like that.
Yeah.
It was refreshing to see a book about health that really brought things down to a very fundamental, practical, elementary level. I mean, everything you just described, Michael, it's so innate, right?
Right.
Sunlight, breathing, posture,
Right.
all this. So, and I think we all have a tendency in this day and age to be like, really,
Yeah.
this is going to help me.
Sure.
How do you, I'm sure you've come across people that, not maybe not so much about the book per se, but about what you teach and your philosophies. What do you say to folks like that?
Well, I think part of my reasoning for bringing this up, they're not novel concepts like you're
Mm-mm.
saying. I didn't reinvent the wheel, but what I did was try to remind people where we came from as a
Yep.
human species, of understanding what is our biology really about. And that's what our ancestors did innately. Just they had, the power of watching what happens, to people if they're in a cave all day for weeks and weeks, and they seem to get sick and not look well. So go outside in the sun, move around, breathe. And there's a lot of like anecdotes of history and, philosophy in my book that I relate to, that we knew these things are powerful for centuries. And so my sort of twist is that I reference the modern studies of why those things are important, and we shouldn't, just toss away the power that these things have in our and in our everyday life. And this is, how do I get people to experience it? Well, it's just explaining and trying to get people a few tools and just saying, try it. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but if you try a few things and tell me if you feel better or not, then you're going to have that sort of experience in your own body of what helps you. And that one thing is going to be good for everybody. So
Hmm.
you have to kind of connect to what is our body saying that it needs and what is a few things that it's been lacking that I can just simply plug in. There's this modern revolution into biohacking, and this is for me like I like the concept of biohacking, but our body is, really what we're doing is reminding our body what it's set up
Yeah.
for. And there's so much free medicine out there. You don't need to buy the latest gadget or buy the latest supplement. If you connect yourself outside to our natural environment through the right sunlight, the right colors, through grounding in the earth, through, listening to what nature is telling us, then it's going to remind our biology. And at a deep neurologic level, it's going to remind us of, oh, that's what it's like to feel good. And I think that's really powerful. And that's why I try to focus on the experiential parts of it. And yeah, there's people that I think we get caught up in whatever social media and in our Hollywood, and everything looks so glamorous, and to have all these like super tools or go into some fancy clinic, and those are helpful, but what they're doing is really something essentially we have capable all inside of us to just recognize that these tools are important.
Mm.
And it helps to have a guide. It helps to have someone that can inspire you or motivate you or just tell you a little bit of why it's important. And sometimes it helps if a doctor says it. For some reason, people think, oh, a doctor told me this, so I have to do it. And it's maybe something they've heard their grandmother tell them, you know, leave a window open, when you're sleeping and get some fresh air in at night, or, try to get outside and don't be inside all day, So this is
Yeah.
simple but true.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I know you cover a lot, but I want to, I always like breaking things down for people. One, to encourage them to want to read your book and get the book and read it, but also more importantly, to start applying, in your case, these different zones, these different principles into their life. So I'm going to ask you, Michael, out of everything you share, if we put in our mind's eye right now, a man or a woman, middle, 50, 50 plus, decent shape, they're in good health. What would be three things that you would just either remind them of, because they may have already heard it, like getting out in the sunlight before 10 o'clock and stuff like that, the things I kind of hear, either remind them, or maybe it's something they're hearing for the first time, but what would be three things in any of the
Yeah,
zones that
sure.
you think these are really important? I believe these are important, and I want you to know about them, and go start doing them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's a great, way to get people to understand why this is so important, and it's so practical. And the three things that I think about right off the top of my head is, one, what's our relationship to light? And I think the easiest thing, and the thing that I tell like people so often when their health is disrupted is, watch out for artificial light and the technology that we have that's influencing our own, let's say, hormonal and circadian rhythm. So what we can do is turn down the lights at night, get really dim, warm lights. You can wear blue light blocking glasses when you're on screens for a long time, especially in the evening when the sunlight goes down. So blue light has been implicated into so many things, and there's a lot of biological reasoning behind this, but the idea is that screens and artificial light contain more blue light than in what we're used to in nature. And that blue light starts triggering our brain to be out of balance from a circadian rhythm standpoint, which is sort of the master clock of how our body's supposed to be doing things. So simply enough, what we can do is one, if you don't want to change any lighting or any of your habits, put on some blue light blocking glasses, especially when the sun is down in the evening, and we're going to start re-triggering our circadian rhythm to be on. And in that same, thread, it's waking up at the appropriate time, get sunlight in the morning, try to open your eyes and just get outside for a walk, 15, 20 minutes of fresh sunlight. Just even if you wear glasses, try to put down your glasses and just sit and let the natural light hit your eyes. And that's for a reason, because the spectrum that actually hits our eyes and goes to the retina is very, very important at the information that it gives our body. So simple, wake up, get some sunlight, let your natural light, if you wear contacts or glasses, take them off. You could sit in a chair, you could just feel comfortable being outside and get sunlight. It doesn't matter what time of year it is, if it's cold or warm, but getting out and seeing the morning sunlight and fading down that bright blue light in the evening. And if you don't want to change any of the lights in your home, but if you do, try to get warm incandescent light bulbs that will be less blue light for our eyes, but wear the blue light blocking glasses. So that's number one.
All right, and let me stop you real quick, because now, like, I could have a whole conversation just on a
Oh, I
lot of
know.
wisdom
Yeah.
there. But that morning sun, I've heard about it. It's a practice of mine that I've now done for years. You're not putting suntan lotion on or anything, right? The point is to get sun,
Yeah. Get
sunlight.
sun on your skin and in your eyes. Of course, don't go outside closing your eyes, but the idea is that we're getting that information of the sunlight spectrum to our brain about what time it is,
Hmm.
and the sunlight as it hits our body and our skin, it starts starting processes that help in our metabolism. And they've done studies that even people who just do that and get more sunlight without changing anything in a healthy context, you will lose weight. There's no need to hold on to those stress hormones, the cortisol. Our metabolism increases the more natural sunlight we get. That's why people feel great in the summer and they eat whatever they want and they go to the beach and they still feel like they feel really energized. So the other thing with morning sunlight is that it starts to tell our brain to build up our melatonin reserves. And melatonin, I'm sure people have heard, is the hormone that helps us sleep. And there's many things that it does. It's an anti-inflammatory hormone. It increases the power of our mitochondria. So we need more melatonin and natural melatonin from our own body, and we build that from morning sunlight. So yes, get your body exposed to that natural light in the first few hours of the day. Even if you don't have a tan, it's not going to be harmful for your skin or your body. Does that
Very
make
good.
sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
So what would be your second?
So number two is what I kind of like combine the two and three, because the idea is, if someone were to ask me what's the most powerful thing out of all this sort of everyday medicine concepts, it's what's happening up here in our mind. Right? So in our brain, and how we start our day is also very important. So what kind of positive thoughts are we having? What kind of purpose is part of our day? What kind of intention do we have? So what I like to say is, I'll stack these three things: get outside, get morning sunlight, ground your feet on the earth, and there's other reasons for that. Sit, breathe, that's another zone. Deep breaths, just be present in the moment, and then start in your head and your mind, just for 5 minutes, start to go over what's your intention for today. What are the positive things you want to bring into your life? How is your health and how do you think you can improve it? And the power of that, it's like starting a program in our system that everything wants to align with that for the rest of the day. So the more we enforce those patterns that, one, I just say, I'm happy, I'm healthy, I am, full of abundance, I have gratitude, just any of those positive affirmations, or, I am successful. And that means you're successful at being here in the moment, and your body is going to move you towards more success and move you towards more gratitude and health. So the three things are thinking positively, breathing, because breathing relaxes our nervous system, allows us to be present, and getting the light, which is our connection to the environment. Starting your day like that is going to be so powerful.
I appreciate those, and I really
Yeah.
do love again the succinctness and practicalness of it, the practicality of it. I do want to ask you something before we start wrapping up here, though, because
Sure.
I've heard slash read, and I'm hearing more and more about grounding, and you just
Uh-huh.
mentioned grounding,
Right.
and something recently I read was, getting out in bare feet on the earth. Not, I'm rarely in shoes, except when I'm
Yeah.
going out, but I'm also in a building.
Uh-huh.
That's not grounding, right? Grounding
No.
is being outside.
Right. Yeah, think of it like an electrical cable, or if people are, anything about electricity, to ground something means that you tap it into the earth or you allow electrons to flow. And something that's ungrounded, it maintains electrons kind of static in a system, and that can discharge later. And so our body is an electrical being, electrical unit. When we talk about mitochondria, and the ultimate process is moving electrons around in our body. And what grounding is essentially is putting a contact of our body against the earth. And the earth has its own electromagnetic field that when we connect to it, we get information about it, reminding us about our sort of innate biology of how things are supposed to work and flow. The other things we found from medical studies is that we build up a charge in our system, and then we have the side effects of, maybe you've heard of free radicals, which is things that cause inflammation and damage to our cells. These are free electrons just floating around, and if they're not moved and circulated out in the proper way, they cause damage to cells in our tissue. So what we found is that inflammation decreases significantly the more we can connect to the earth. And that's because we're releasing this sort of discharge of free electrons. And then our body is kind of frees up processes that it can, continue to do and heal. So there's some great books and documentaries about this, but it's a powerful and simple practice. I know it sounds silly. Of course, there's like caveats, you don't want to put your feet on a place where there's like potential power lines or something, or if there's, chemicals sprayed on the grass or something. But in your own yard, if you know it's safe and you connect to the earth that way, it's just standing and getting your time. We just are in relatively short human time zone. We created this insulation of putting, rubber soles on our feet, putting concrete on our floors, and we become disconnected from the earth when actually it's a powerful, biological mechanism to get reconnected to. And animals do it all the time. And, so we are kind of a strange animal that we disregard that in some degree.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I really promote that for people.
Yeah. It's something, like I said, I'm hearing more and more about. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, thank you very much. Again, congratulations. I know you have a unique gift for my listeners relative to the book. Can you describe that?
Yeah, so I created sort of like a synthesis of the zones of health that I talk about in my book, for just sort of practical guide for people how to promote longevity and health, and give you a few tools extra. And that can be found off my website. There's a link I know you're going to post for the listeners. And it's a free download, just make you, check a few boxes and get it to your inbox. And if you like what you're reading there, or it kind of stimulates interest, I just go so in depth in the book of many, many tools. And it's almost like you could just I made it so you could just open my book somewhere and start reading and
Yeah.
just be like, oh, that's an interesting concept. How do I utilize that? How do I utilize music, sound? How do I utilize light or breath or, green? And I share this with my patients, and they say, like, you know what? I don't really remember most of your book, but except for this one thing. And I'm like, well, that's great. That's all I really want, is like the power of green light or something like that, it's okay. And then eventually you go back and look at things again. And that's how it's almost like just like a simple guide that, is also meant to be interesting to read, and to reinforce, healthy behaviors. So
For sure.
hope
For
people
sure.
can look for that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You've done that. Well, Michael, again, congratulations. Brand new, listeners, viewers, get a copy. Michael, describe where folks can learn more about you. I know you have a retreat coming up. Is that the end of this year or beginning of
The end
next
of
year
this year.
in
Yeah.
Costa Rica?
Costa Rica Health and Wellness Retreat. Yeah.
Yeah,
Usually,
describe all that.
sure. I have a website, it's everyday-medicine.com. And, I try to put out educational videos for people and content. and a way to connect to me and with me if there's consultations people are interested in. But I'm really trying to get people the experience of health. So I have a health and wellness retreat happening in Costa Rica at the end of the year. It's kind of a new year, new health, renew your health kind of retreat, which is teaching these kind of zones of everyday medicine and experiencing them in your body. It gives you practical tools how to do it. Plus, you're in a healthy and clean environment, and hopefully, it triggers some mechanisms and biology to turn on and to promote your health into the new year. So, if anyone's interested, they can check out my website, everyday-medicine.com.
Well,
Yeah.
Michael, again, great job with the book. I look forward to hopefully sharing it with a bunch of new folks that can learn more about you. Maybe a few will come out to Costa Rica, come
Yeah.
down to Costa
Well,
Rica.
happy to see anyone who wants to come out or just shoot me an email or just connect with me. I'm super easy to get a hold of, and I love talking to people about health. So I
And
appreciate it.
are you doing any virtual
Yeah.
work
Mhm.
with patients?
Yeah, I do. I have a clinic based out of Pennsylvania, and it's just basically where I have my business, and I'm licensed in several states to practice medicine. So I do sort of the functional medicine consulting online, and I can order tests. I can help you to kind of refine better what's going on in your health and maybe get the ball rolling for people that aren't, getting help through the common ways, I guess. Yeah.
Very good. Well, Michael, again, thank you very much,
Thank
and
you.
definitely appreciate your time today.
All right, Mike, thanks so much. I'm happy to be here, and thanks for allowing me to share everyday medicine with your viewers.